we can go.
Right, so good morning, everybody. My name is Iulia, and I'm from the University of Kent. Um, I am a research associate at the moment at the University of Kent, and I just finished my PhD this summer. Um, so I'm going to talk about what I do for a bit. So my research at the moment is on human-inspired machines for face recognition and voice recognition. My PhD, which I finished in the summer, was on humanoid robots, and I was implementing grasping and locomotion algorithms for bipedal robots. So, for example, the idea was that the robot was able to uh, pick up a cup from a certain position without knowing it in advance. I also did my MSc at the University of Kent in Information Security and Biometric, and I have a Bachelor in Computer Science. I'm an academic STEM ambassador for STEM learning and for the University of Kent, an IEEE volunteer, so I get involved in different activities. For example, the Teacher in Service program week, the Young Professional and Student Congress, and I was a teaching assistant at the University of Kent, so I was teaching modules like programming and web development. So a bit of about my research from my PhD. So I was working with the robot that you can see in the images. So the robot is a humanoid robot which was developed in France by Aldebaran Robotics. It's quite small. It has only about 6 centimeters, and the idea was to develop grasping and locomotion algorithms. Also, the robot was part of an European project, which was a healthcare project called the Koalas. It was an assistant to a disabled person, in which, for example, one of the scenario was that the robot was able to communicate with the wheelchair or detect if the person has fallen and call for help if needed. I also do quite a bit of outreach events. So I used to coordinate the outreach events for the IEEE for Kent, and at the moment I'm doing quite a bit of outreach events for engineering with different companies, and I work very closely with engineering companies like Cambridge Consultants and John Guest. We are working on creating a book, an engineering book for primary school children, in which you can do different experiments with very low cost materials like cardboard and bobby pins, for example. So I look forward to answering your questions. So if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat, and I'm gonna read them out and answer them.
Okay, teachers. So if anyone has any questions, any of your pupils have any questions, please can they type them into the chat facility? And oh yeah. I say there's one here. Can you speak a little louder? But obviously,
Oh yeah.
that was earlier. But yeah. There you go. Can you see that one, Julia?
There we go. How long did it take to make the robot? I didn't make the robot myself, so the robot was made in France. I know that the whole planning took about like 5 years until they released the first version of the robot, which was not the one that I was working with. What inspired you to become an engineer? So I actually wanted to become a medical doctor initially, but then I realized that I was afraid of blood. So instead of helping humans, I decided to help them in a different way. So creating different devices like robots that can help them in their houses. Did it take long to become an engineer? It depends. So obviously I did a bachelor, which was 3 years. Then I did a master's, which was another year, and 4 years of PhD. How long does it take you to program the robot? It depends what you wanted to program, because For example, sometimes when you have to do a certain program, when you do the experiments to see how well the program is behaving, it might not behave the way you want it to behave. So you will have to go back and try to find the different bugs in the system and fix them. How many different types of robots have you worked with? I worked with not that many robots actually. I worked with the Now robot, and I worked with different Arduino robots and Lego robots. What made you want to get involved in robotics? When I was doing my master's, I went to see my supervisor in his office, and the robot that I was working with, the Now robot, was in his office sitting on the floor. So he asked me if I want to do a PhD with the robot, and I said yes straight away because I just fell in love with the robot. I think I went too far. How long have you been an engineer? For about 5 years now. What is your favorite type of robotics? My favorite type of robotics is humanoid robotics because it's very, very complicated and very, very difficult because you have to make them behave like humans. Are there any new materials that have helped you with your recent designs? I don't design the robots myself, so all the robots that I work with are already designed, and I work on the control part just to implement, for example, locomotion algorithms. How did you get interested in robotics? I always wanted to do something that will be meaningful, and obviously robotics is a way to do something for the society. How long does it take to build one robot shown in the PowerPoint? Well, at the moment, so the company released a new robot this year in the summer, and it took them about 2 years to develop different new things for the robot, like for example, add stereo vision on the robot. But to build one from scratch, it can take a few years, and obviously a big team of engineers. Where do you see the future of robotics? It depends at the moment what type of robotics we are talking about, because if we are talking about robots like that look like human and actually behave like humans, I don't think we are nowhere near that. I think at the moment robots can be assistants to people. So for example, they can help us building stuff in factories, they can help us at the reception, for example, or in the house. We actually do have robots because we have a washing machine, we have uh, a fridge which can be considered a bit of a robot, we have TVs, we have smartphones. All of these can in a way be considered robots. Would you say it's hard work? Yes, it is, especially when you do have to create something and it doesn't work from the first try. But at the same time, it's very, very engaging, and it gives you the motivation that you need to actually make it work. Do you think more things can be controlled by robots in the future? Uh, Probably, because at the moment, a very, very big thing is Internet of Things, in which you can have different devices communicating with each other. So you don't have to, for example, have a remote for your TV. You don't have to have a remote for your, let's say, sound system or anything. You can just use them from one device, for example, your phone. And most TVs at the moment do accept for you to just use your phone as a remote control. So I think robots will be able to do that as well, communicate with different devices in the house. What is the best thing about your job? I like meeting new people and giving this kind of talks. So I get to do this quite a bit. When you were younger, what were you interested in? When I was very young, I was interested in medicine, but I couldn't do that. So then I switched to engineering and computer science shortly after that. How long did it take you to work out how the robot worked? About, let's say, 6 months. you have to get used to the architecture of the robot and how it's built, and have to read all the documentation that comes with the robot. Do you think robots are good or bad? It depends how people use them, because obviously robots can be used in military as well. They can be used in healthcare. So if you use them in healthcare, obviously robots will be good because they can help treat people. Whereas if you use them in military so that you can attack countries and attack people, they are bad. What is your day-to-day work like? I don't have a 9 to 5 working hours, so I can come to work whenever I want and leave whenever I finish my work, as long as I do my work. But I wouldn't say that every day is the same, because every day I have to do different things and different experiments and go to different meetings and so on. Are you always going to work in robotics, or do you see yourself moving into other areas? I think I'm gonna continue working in robotics, or at least I do want to continue working in robotics. I consider going into consultancy, but doing consultancy for robotics companies. What was the first thing you coded? The first thing that I coded was when I was 15, and we had to do a very simple program that adds two numbers together. What is the best thing about your job? That I get to meet new people and I get to do these kind of talks. How old were you when you realized you loved engineering? I was about 10, 11 years old. Do you find it tricky? Sometimes when something doesn't work from the beginning, it is quite tricky, and sometimes you get to spend a month trying to figure it out, or even more. What age did you start engineering? I started programming when I was 15, and then I went into university at 19. Do you like going to school? Yes, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. When you went to school, what were your favorite subjects and interests? I used to like math a lot, so I was very good at math. I could just memorize an equation and just start uh, solving it. I was also very good at physics and very good at chemistry and programming. Did you invent things in your spare time? For your PhD, when you're doing your PhD, you do have to invent things. So, for example, my algorithms had to be state of the art and had to be better than everything that was already on the market. What do the robots do? So the robots can be an assistant for a disabled person, so they can communicate with the robotic wheelchair. They can detect if someone has fallen and call for help. They can entertain you, so they can dance or talk to you, and so on. What subjects did you take at school? I took a lot of physics, chemistry, maths, and programming. How long did it take you to qualify to be an engineer? Um, in total, for university, it was 8 years. What are you going to do in the future? At the moment, I'm a research associate at University of Kent. So after that, I hope to get into consultancy in the UK. What part of a robot have you worked with, and what did you do in that part? My main research was on the arm of the robot, and to generate very smooth motions so that the robot can pick up, for example, a cup from an unknown position. Um, how long have you been making robots for? I haven't built any robots myself, so I just work with off-the-shelf robots and implement control algorithms for them. What would you like to be if you weren't an engineer? I've never thought of that question, and I don't think that I can choose something else but being an engineer. What is the typical salary for your type of engineering? if you just have a bachelor, the salary starts about like 30,000 per year, and then as you get advanced and you get masters and PhD, you can start from like 40K. What subject did you take to become an engineer? Physics, maths, programming, and chemistry. Is anyone else in your family an engineer? I was the first engineer in my family. How long did you spend in university? 8 years in total with bachelor, master's, and PhD. Do you think being a female is trickier to become an engineer? It's not. It's exactly the same thing as being a male. It's just that you have to be good at what you do. If you're good, it doesn't really matter. Would you like to go into space? I'm afraid of flying, so I don't think I can do that. Are the robots on sale now? The robots are on sale, but they are only available for research purposes. What is the hardest part of being an engineer? The fact that you have to do a lot of research and a lot of experiments and then fix bugs. Where do the names of the robots come from? When the company designed the robots, they came up with an idea that they want the external look to be designed by children. So they made a competition in France in which students got to design a robot and give it a name. So the team that won, the design that won, they called the robot Now. And the company just liked the fact that it sounds like the word now, N-O-W, so they just kept it, but no one really knows what it means. Do you think robots will help with the environment in the future? Yes, and there are actually robots that help with that. So, for example, there are different robots that can be sent in the sea, and they can clean different garbage and different substances that can harm the environment. What age are the robots? The robots were released in 2007, so they have about 11 years old. Do you have your own company? No, not yet. Is it fun? Yes, it is. Does your job ever get boring? Sometimes when you have to fix the same error over and over again. What was your first job before engineering? I went straight into university and all the jobs that I had were engineering related. Have you had any previous jobs? Yes, but all of them were engineering related and research. How long did you have to attend university to become an engineer? You have to do your bachelor, so that would be about 3 years or 4 years if you want to do a foundation year or year in industry. Do you think robots will be able to have human voices? Probably in the future, yes. Why do you like engineering? It is very motivating, and at the same time it can make a difference to society. What was your favorite subject at primary school? Mathematics. Can someone help us with this? Oh, someone has problem with the sound. um,
I'm not sure what that means.
so someone said they have problem with the sounds. I can't find the
Canberra. Only off his phone call. That's very strange, Canberra. Because it should offer you the audio for the computer. Not sure what to do about that. Okay, there's nothing we can do about that, I don't think.
Yeah. Shall I continue?
Yes, please. Sorry, you. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Do you think you will do well in the future? I hope so. I haven't really thought of the future that much, so I hope so. Why did you choose robotics in particular? When I was doing my master's, I went to my supervisors for my master's office, and the robot was sitting there. So I just fell in love with the robot. And when he asked me if I want to do a PhD with that particular robot, I just said yes straight away. Where are you from? I'm from Romania originally. Did you enjoy school? Did you work hard? Yes, I did enjoy school, and I worked quite hard for, especially for science related subjects, because I really wanted to go into engineering and sciences in general. When did you become an engineer? Well, I would say when I started going into university, so around 19. How many hours do you work a day? It varies. It depends how much work you have to do for that day. You don't have a 9 to 5 schedule. How much longer do you want to be an engineer? Hopefully for quite a long time. I wouldn't want to switch to any other career. What is the largest and most impactful project you have worked on? The largest one would be a project that I worked on during my PhD. So it was called the Qualas project, and it was an European project. There were two universities from UK. There were two universities from France, and there was the NHS from Kent. So in total, we were about 40 researchers in the project. What is the furthest destination you've been on for your job? For my job, I've only been to France, Belgium, so Europe, just Europe in general, Italy, Spain, and so on.
So, is there any more questions? Or is everyone happy there?
Okay, what do you think robots will do in the future? Hopefully they will be able to assist us more. So at the moment, obviously robots are not very intelligent, so you can't just have a proper conversation with them. So hopefully they will work, they will help with that as well.
How does AI fit in with robotics, Iulia?
They are quite important. AI is quite important for robotics. For example, there is a company that claims that they have an intelligent robot, and that would be Sophia, I think her name is, and it was the first robot that got a citizenship from Saudi Arabia.
Ooh.
But at the same time, when you watch interviews with her, you can see that she's not really intelligent, because at one point someone asked her what's her favorite TV show. She says she doesn't have time for TV, but then a few questions after that, she started relating her life to a TV series. So it's a bit questionable. Do you feel very exhausted when engineering? Sometimes you do, because sometimes you have to work for long hours and for a few days straight. Is a PhD imperative to having a position in robotics? Not really. It depends where you want to go. So, for example, a PhD is very important if you want to go into academia. And at the moment, there are quite a few people that have PhDs in engineering, and they have positions like CEO or CTOs and stuff like that. Was university challenging? Sometimes, not all the time. Do you have a fear about robotics? Not really, because if robots will become dangerous, I don't think we will get to see it, because we are nowhere near having very intelligent robots. Do you agree with all the areas that robots are being used? Some of them. For example, in medicine, for example, we have the Da Vinci robot, which is being used for surgeries, and it's more stable than having a doctor performing the surgery. So you have the doctor manipulating the robot. The robot doesn't do the surgery on its own, but it's more stable. Do you get to travel? Sometimes for my project, for example, for the current project, I have to travel to Southampton every 3 months or so. What did you want to make a robot? Um, it's just exciting, and it's different, than it's more hands-on. Why did you choose the UK to work? I had quite a few destinations in mind. So UK was one of them, then Netherlands was one of them, and US as well. But UK had the best masters for what I wanted to do at the time. Do you ever feel like giving up when you come across the same problem? Sometimes, but eventually you go ahead and you try to fix it, because you know it matters. What do you want to achieve in the future? Hopefully create better robots and more intelligent and more human-like.
Anybody else got anything else?
Does having a scientific background help with your interests? Were your parents scientists? I would say that having a scientific background in a way does help, because obviously you have to be quite good at maths and physics. My parents were not scientists, so I was the first one to go on that route in my family. Do you want to work with a lifelike robot? I'm not entirely sure if I would want to. I would want to contribute to that, but not working all the time with it, because the fact that it will look like a proper human but not behave like a proper human, it's a bit scary. Do you play sport? Yes, I do.
What sports do you play, Iulia?
I do a bit of boxing.
Oh.
What would you like to achieve during your job? At the moment, we are just trying to make software more similar to humans, so a bit of machine learning.
Isn't a human robot or a more human-like robot called an android rather than a robot?
Pardon me?
Isn't a human-like robot called an android as opposed to being called a robot?
It is a bit of a weird definition, in the sense that, for example, you don't really know what a robot is, don't know what humanoid robot is, because everybody is using terms differently. So there aren't any standards that classify something as being a robot, humanoid robot, machine, android, and so on. So everybody uses terms differently. It actually depends. Are you a software developer? I do a bit of software development as well.
Can I just squeeze in there?
Yeah.
Charlotte, is that you at the Glasgow Gaelic School? If you can hear me, oh, she's just frozen. She was having a bit of problems earlier. But her screen's frozen now. If you can hear me, can you go to chat and let me know? So, any more questions here? Sorry, guys. Looks like we may be done. Oh, thank you, Year 6 at Ashton Keynes. Thoroughly enjoyed the event, so I'm glad to hear that. and Charlotte's finally working, and just as we're finishing. But not to worry. We how do we turn on the volume? It should be on your computer somewhere. But I think I should, unless anyone's any more questions, I think we should call it a day. Charlotte, I'll contact you shortly about other events, and then hopefully we'll be able to get on earlier and be able to do it. Iulia, thank you so much once again. It's been fabulous. And again, I'll contact you by email shortly. And if everyone's happy, then we shall go. Oh,
I just stopped my
aha, yeah. Oh, we should have done that before, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Oops, never mind. Lovely. Okay, so I'm going to close the meeting now. And thank you everybody for attending.
No problem.
Okay, so actually, Iulia, can you close the meeting because you're the
Yes. I just click end meeting. I would assume.
yeah, please.
Oh, yeah. See you.
Brilliant. Speak soon.